Today is September 29th, 2018, and you're listening to Life in General with Ron Tang. Hey, what's going on? I am back. I feel like I am, although I never really left. It's just that things have been a little hectic with the whole injury and all, and I just want to move past it at this point. I gotta say, I think I've fallen off the wagon on the podcast a little bit. The last one was solely about the surgery, and I gotta say, when I re-listened to it, one of my good friends, he's like, okay, why do I care about your finger? Like, just move on from it already, which is true. So I just want to give everyone a very, very quick update. Yes, I am getting better. The antibiotics are done. I'm no longer using painkillers, so that's good. I will heal maybe a deformed fingertip. I think I've mentioned that, and I'm still not sure whether the fingernail will grow back. Some of it will, though, I think, but it takes a long fucking time, maybe 6 months to a year from now. So no more painkillers. I do try to get off that as soon as I can. I know those are no good for long term. So I got this British codeine. It's called cocodamol, which is like codeine with paracetamol. And I was thinking of actually throwing them out, but I'll just keep them just in case, if anything happens, just in case. And no, they're not for sale. I'm not giving them out. I'm not selling them to people. All right. I know that we have an opioid crisis in Canada as is, and in a lot of different parts. But yeah, we have a bad opioid crisis in Toronto and in Vancouver especially. So yeah, man, opioids are no joke. So I'm just gonna keep them at bay, and I did as soon as I didn't need them. I still remember the first time I went into the ER since the incident, and the first thing that the nurse asked me once I got in there is like, "Do you want Oramorph?" I'm like, "What's that?" Like oral morphine, and I was like, "Yes, please." And after I took that shot, which is like it's like in a syringe, you just like squirt it, and I just drifted off into this blissful sleep sitting on a chair, which usually I cannot do. Man, that was good. That was good. But now I'm opioid free. I'm done with that, and it's just healing time from here on out. So I am back at work. I'm back on my diet, which I gotta say I've fallen off that too, you know. And when I came back, when I went grocery shopping, I just bought everything I needed for this diet, and it's so hard to implement it again once you've fallen off for like 2 weeks. And it's because you're playing around with like carbohydrates, right? It's like your body craves it. You know, it's like it really is a drug. You know, anything sugary, bread, pasta, whatever. Like you have some, and then you want more of it later, and then you want more, and you want more, and then you just spend the rest of your life eating them again. So, but you know what it is? Like the reason why I have fallen off my diet recently, is because I've been blessed enough to have people around me that care to come pay me a visit, or family that's checking up on me, and I just end up eating out all the time, right? There's just an abundance of people checking in, and I feel blessed that they just come by, and then we end up grabbing lunch or going out for dinner, and then my whole diet just fucking goes off the rails. But I have a family member and a friend who are both nurses. They both came by at some point, and they helped me clean the wound with sterile water, which you can only get at the hospitals. That's why they will remain anonymous, because they just took this shit from their hospital that they work at, and came over with the supplies, and they changed the gauze for me, the bandaging, they cleaned it with sterile water, and one of them even shot me up with lidocaine, the anesthetic, into my. I'm like, holy shit! Like, you can do this? It was a little bottle of lidocaine, and they just numbed it before I change the bandaging, because as soon as I take it off, it just starts fucking bleeding. The fingernail part, right underneath the fingernail, which is like a lining of mucous membrane area. It's similar to like the inside lining of your nose, right? Like it's really sensitive. As soon as you irritate it, it just starts bleeding. So that's the part that's a bitch right now. But yeah, I am, believe it or not, back in the gym. I've actually been back for a while. I couldn't tell my mother and went against my doctor's orders. I remember when I first went back in, my mom called and she's like, "Are you at the fucking gym?" I'm like, "No. I can hear the background noise." And I had nothing to say. Yeah, I was back in there, and I know it's fucking stupid. I have figured out a way to, I'm not using free weights right now. Like, I'm not that fucking stupid. I'm not going to risk it. The stitches busting open. Like, I figured out a way. The good thing is, it happened on the most useless fucking finger, which is, my left ring finger. I can train without my fingers. To be honest, there's a lot of exercises you can do that only requires your palms, pushing motions. When I'm doing chest press or shoulder press, you just put your hands and you push up or frontwards. Pec deck, you can just use your forearms to close in. There's leg days. There's ways around it, and I find that there's either people who will find the slightest excuse not to make it in there, or people who will find any excuse to get their asses back in there. And I'm happy to say I'm, the better of the two. It's just disappointing that, I didn't hit my targets before this incident. And, in my head, it's like there's certain goals and there's certain numbers every year that I have to hit. And it just boils down to like, I'm either going to achieve it or I'm going to spend another year, well, in my head, thinking that I am a fuck up. So that's all it is. But yeah, the hardest thing right now for me is getting back on that diet. Training isn't really an issue. It's actually a pretty good change, it's a pretty good routine change from what I usually do. So it'll be interesting to see where I can get with, limited motions and exercises. All I'm doing is just staying away from free weights for 2 to 3 months. So, that's really all it is. But I'm having such difficulty implementing the same keto diet, high in fats, which I was feeling really good on. I am still eating the foods I'm supposed to eat, but it's just like, yeah, friends come over, family comes over at nighttime. I just go off the rails. I am still cooking everything with, coconut oil. I'm still eating, fresh avocados on a daily basis. Oh, by the way, did you guys see and I actually, I did a rant on this, not on a podcast, but there was an article by this professor, apparently from Harvard, that talked about how coconut oil was so bad for you. My mom actually called me and told me about how coconut oil is poisonous for you after looking at this article. And I'm like, where did you hear this shit? She showed me this via WhatsApp, and I told her, like, watch. There's going to be an article, like I said before, there's an article that's going to debunk that one, and then there's going to be another article later that debunks that one, and then there's another claim and that it's actually false. And then I showed it to everyone that I know, and people are like, yeah, this bothered you, eh? I'm like, yeah, it did. I probably wouldn't have been so triggered if I didn't have to hear it from my parents, because, they know that I cook with coconut oil. And, but for them to make this bold claim all of a sudden that it's pure poisonous, this is kind of misleading information. This is what fucks everything up. Now everyone is misguided because one person or one group of people wanted to stand out. I mean, obviously anything in excess isn't good. I just tell people, do your own research, because there's floods of people on social media will just like repost that article and they'll just believe it. People come out with this shit whenever things are working out for everyone, and then, they have a fancy name like Harvard attached to it. It's got to be correct. It's Harvard. Nobody else is capable of research studies, right? Just them. Something as simple as coconut oil. And I tell her, like, put it in your hair, put some on your skin. You can mix it with baking soda, apply it as, cheap exfoliant on your face. Like, it does wonders and it saves you money. You cook with it. People have been doing it for decades. They're not poisoned to death. But to boldly make that claim because you're writing a book. You need your name out there at this moment, so you make some asinine claim to mislead people. But yeah, I was just wondering, like, if this shit's been researched, like how aspartame has been researched, like how MSG has been researched. I recently found out there is actually MSG stigma attached to like Chinese restaurants out there, because I've actually heard it on more than one occasion that people tend to get more tired due to MSG consumption eating out Chinese food. I mean, even for the longest time, Chinese people still believe that it's something bad themselves, you know? But I found out that it was discovered by MSG was discovered by a Japanese scientist, and apparently MSG is extracted out of seaweed. It enhances flavors and brings out the taste of whatever you're making. Usually when you eat out, I'd say, unless it's one of those like Freshies or whatever, 99% of restaurants have MSG in their food, okay? Even the ones that claim they don't, but the ingredients that they use to make it already has a bit in there. So any type of salty or flavored snack you buy, just look on the back for monosodium glutamate. Like it's there. It's always there. And you know, nothing has actually proved that it's bad for you, except for people's xenophobia, I think. It's just linked to a culture, and that's what these people use, and these people are the devil. That's usually how it goes down, no? No MSG. You know those restaurants, like even the Asian ones, is like no MSG. Like, you know, they're afraid that they'll lose business because a lot of people will just, you know, go to other restaurants with MSG. I don't know. Even Asians themselves, like the few generations that have been here, believe it to a point that putting out a sign that says no MSG by the window would be more acceptable by Caucasians that go in there. But mind you, everything else they consume in any other restaurant has the same amount of MSG in there. All the fast food joints, semi-healthy joints, all the salty snacks that you buy at the gas station, whatever, except for like cookies, because, you know, it's sweet. Anything sugar-free, though, the majority of the time it is replaced by aspartame. And that's another thing, right? It's cheap and efficient and really sweet. Also discovered by scientists, by the way. I do not know of what descent, but I did read that it also came from a science experiment in which he spilled some of it and just licked it off his wrist and realized it had a sweet taste to it. And I guess then he saw a way in to produce massive amounts of it. But yeah, in regards to coconut oil, you know, now some fucking fly-by-night professor who half-assed researched it. Was clinical trials done on people, or, you know, I'm wondering if they just studied the subject itself and decide to tell the whole world that it's poisonous. You know, some professor who's writing a book and now needs their name out there, controversial or not. It's fucking shameless, some of these profs that decide to, you know, take that maybe any publicity is good publicity type thinking, you know? So now what happens is everybody knows his name. You know, he's the prof that proved coconut oil is poisonous. And 80% of the people that don't dig deeper for themselves, now the whole world believes that coconut oil is nothing but poison for your body. Like look around you, okay? Like your neighbors, now he thinks it's poisonous. You know, they think it's poisonous now, and they're not looking deeper. They saw that, you know, international news articles, and they all believe it, right? Same thing with milk, Nutella, and like I've mentioned in one of my other podcasts, like there's going to be an article like pretty soon, and it has already came out like demanding that professor to apologize. You know, that one has already debunked his article. Like it wasn't even like a week after, I remember. It was like a cardiologist that's called him out on being... and called the article out on being unscientific nonsense. I swear if you asked your family doctor and spoke to professional athletes about nutrition, I would say take the athlete's advice. Not just any athlete, but, you know, people with coaches and has done the trial and error themselves, you know, what works, what doesn't, compared to, you know, textbook pill prescribing. I'm not discrediting all the doctors, but, you know, I'm just saying that you don't go to a mechanic with a broken car or a dentist with bad teeth, right? If you want training advice, you're going to take it from someone who looks the part, right? Obviously not professional bodybuilding. No. That is something entirely different. All right? That is an entirely different world. It's not about health at all. It's doing whatever you can to obtain a certain look to please the judges. And it's actually got nothing to do with how healthy you are or how much strength you have even, right? Once you're on stage, it's not how much you can lift either. It's how much you look like you can lift. And that is the beauty of that sport. Bodybuilding and steroids is as American as apple pie. That was one of the quotes from my favorite documentary, Bigger, Faster, Stronger. It was well put together by the Bell brothers. And, it's such an American thing, the vanity of it all, the overconsumption of food and drugs and doing whatever it takes to be in first place. This is like the one activity you do that's literally all about you. And that's why Arnold loved it. He says soccer team, you're just sharing the victory. The things you have to do to place in the top is just... It's one of those things you do all that effort for such little reward, and people love it because it's not something everyone can do and have the discipline for, even if they took steroids, right? A lot of people would be like, "Oh, look at those guys! It's steroids." But the fact is, even if a lot of those people that were bitching about others using steroids, even if they used it, they're not going to look like a pro. All right, most people won't. Yeah, sure, he's taking some synthetic testosterone for whichever reason, I don't know. Cosmetic gym rat, looking to go pro, professional model, actor prepping for a role, who the fuck knows, right? But I do know that, he's around the clock with his nutrition and his sleep and his training and his eating discipline and his mental fortitude. Because, training is pretty standard, all right? A lot of people say, I train hard. Yeah, I push, but I don't look like that. I push hard at the gym. Well, yeah, everybody trains hard. That's the fucking standard. It's everything else you're doing outside the gym that contributes to your physique, right? I mean, if you're not training hard and properly, that's just the building blocks of a good physique. You don't sleep, you don't recover properly. Overtraining is counterproductive. You train hard, eat like shit, counterproductive. I mean, you'll still get bigger. It might just take a bit more time shredding back to your ideal physique when cutting, but if that's the route you're taking. But yeah, I love that documentary. That whole Ben Johnson and Carl Lewis scandal with the masking agents that they use. You can cycle on and off them to mask whatever drugs you're using. I have enough friends who has competed in nationals, provincials, in the NPCs, in the Ontario physique. They do it in cycles, and I know that whole world. And there's so many things that in sports that is considered cheating, and a lot of things is in gray areas, and I think a lot of it is in the gray areas. That's what the documentary talks about. There's things that athletes do. For example, Tiger Woods would have his vision corrected into something where he has superhuman eyesight, where he can see beyond 20/20, further than usual. That was never, written in the rules of golf. So is that cheating? There's such thing as blood doping, where boxers or any high endurance athletes would draw their blood, store it in cold storage, and then when it's game time, they'll pump that back into their body, so they'll have that extra edge while they're competing in either in an Olympic sport, marathons, boxing, or whatever. And then there's actually people who can get the same result doing running in high altitudes or sleeping in these high altitude chambers where there's less oxygen. They build it themselves. There's less oxygen. They do this because the air is thinner at high altitudes, meaning there's fewer oxygen molecules per volume of air. So every breath taken at a high altitude delivers less of what working muscles require And by training at high altitudes, like athletes aim to allow their bodies to produce like extra blood cells. So they get the same result as someone who's blood doping. You know what I mean? So blood doping is illegal, but that's not. They get the same result. So like what's legal and what's not allowed? So there's a lot of gray areas. Anyways, great documentary. And recently somebody told me that this is actually pretty crazy. Ben Johnson's 1988 race, which is the year I was born, so it's been 30 years. They found out that these lab codes from their drug tests have been altered, and that Ben Johnson is legitimately the winner. I don't know the whole story to it. Like, few people have told me about this, and I was just looking at the article this morning. I didn't read all of it, so I don't know. Now, it's most likely that they both doped. Ben Johnson is the winner of the two, or I don't know. Maybe he didn't, and he beat Carl Lewis fair and square. While Carl Lewis did take some. I don't know. There's a lot of different possible combinations to who did and who didn't, and the report showed that there was a lot of question marks, a lot of things that was erased and fucked with, and unverified signatures, and his whole drug report has been tampered with. And the report, they actually have like a copy of it now. It's like scanned and it's shown in that article. So if you guys can take a look, I'm gonna look into it, and then we can discuss about it. Well, I'm gonna talk about it next week, but as of right now, we are out of time. Thanks for tuning back in. I plan to do 13 episodes. This is the 12th one, and then one more. Gonna spend some time promoting it, and if it works out, I'm gonna continue. If not, I think this is it, but I think I'm just saying that. I'm most likely gonna do another episode here and there, but I am gonna take a 2 to 3 week hiatus after next week's episode. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening again. This is episode 12, and I'll talk to you guys later.